With millions of people watching Benue TV worldwide, we ensure that we bring you news that is accurate, timely, and dependable.
Our programs are entertaining and educative with high-quality audio, leaving you with an amazing viewing experience.
Benue TV, a new dimension in broadcasting.
A few hours ago, the Supreme Court of our country had given victory to the 774 local governments across Nigeria, granting them financial autonomy to operate, willingly and also in tandem with the set rules and regulations as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And now it also means that the local government will have that autonomy in terms of disbursement of monies, and monies will come to them directly from the federal coffers as against the jack which took place or several years in the past. And so we shall get to look at what happens, what the law says, and now that autonomy has been granted, we'll take a look at the merits and demerits of the whole of that case as granted by the Supreme Court. My name is Japhet Kwaho.
Good morning, Daybreak family. Thank God it's Friday. Welcome to the Friday edition of the show. My name is Maureen Young. Good morning, Japhet.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very splendid. You look ready for the program.
You look I would say the word, and it's not part of the problem.
It's good to be with you once again on set this morning, and I like to say to Benue people and Nigerians that they should be ready because they need to understand what autonomy actually means. Could it be administrative or just financial autonomy granted to the 774 local governments of the country? We have a man who is well versed with the law of Nigeria will be in the house to talk to us concerning this topic. We'll proceed on a break very quickly. When we return, we'll have our guests for onward discussion. Please stay with us.
Benue Fashion Show Season 3 is here.
It's that time of the year for fashion designers, entrepreneurs, and fashion enthusiasts to shine.
This year, sale of forms for the competition begins from 15th April to 30th June 2024.
Pick a form at Benue Television, located at Special Duties Wing, Government House, Makudi. Form costs 5,000 Naira only.
Stage 1 screening begins on the 6th of July 2024. Great prizes await you.
The first prize, 1 million Naira. Second prize, 500,000 Naira. And third prize, 300,000 Naira. All prizes are inclusive of cash and fashion tools. Also, consolation prizes and gift items.
For sponsorship, partnership and inquiries, please call Benue TV Marketing on 0906 188 9838 or 0703 794 5569.
Benue Fashion Show,
embracing fusion fashion. Benue Fashion Show Season 3 is here.
It's that time of the year for fashion designers, entrepreneurs, and fashion enthusiasts to shine.
are very happy indeed to be here to talk to you concerning the local government autonomy that has been granted to the 774 local government areas across Nigeria. And it's for this singular reason that we have invited a man who is very much abreast with what is the constitution of Nigeria and the laws of the land to speak to us so that we could understand exactly what are the merits and the merits of the ruling as given the verdict by the Supreme Court of Nigeria, which is the apex court in Nigeria. We are very happy to be here this morning, and to do justice to this very important topic, we have Barrister Justin Bagi, Executive Director, Justice and Rights Initiative and former NBA Chairman, Makurdi Branch. I'd like to welcome you very warmly to the studios of Benue Television.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. You look ready for this discussion because I know local government autonomy is one issue that Nigerians have clamored for over the years. We do not know if you have been one of them, but we'll get to know in the course of the interview. Now, first of all, we'd like to know, Barrister Bagi, could you kindly tell us, I know it's happening just hours ago and you may not have the true certified copies of this judgment, but you followed everything that took place. Could you tell us what happened at the Supreme Court of Nigeria?
Well, first and foremost, let me correct an impression that the Supreme Court is the one that granted local government autonomy to the local governments. The local governments already were given their own autonomy by the Constitution of Nigeria. What the Supreme Court simply did was to ensure the enforcement of the provisions of the Constitution. We are in a federal system of government where the Constitution has clearly assigned functions and responsibilities for the federal government, for the state government, and for the local governments. A federal system of government is one where which is normally adopted by countries that have a large population and a large landmass. And the Constitution in the federal system of government usually assign responsibilities that are exclusive for the federal government and the responsibilities that are for the state government, which are contained in the concurrent legislative list. That means that both the federal government and the state government can legislate on. And then the Constitution also assigns responsibilities to the local governments. The same Constitution also assigns what we call the revenue-raising powers or revenue-raising responsibilities to the federal government, to the state government, and the local government respectively. And this is also in conjunction with their responsibilities. So they also have responsibilities to raise revenue for them to perform their functions as they are assigned in the Constitution. And the essence is that you have, it is what in economics we can simply call division of labor.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of responsibility, you have a lot of things to do in the federation. So it will be practically impossible for the federal government to do everything for the people within the federation.
Yes.
And then when you now come to the state level, it is also impracticable for the state government to do everything for the people within the state. So even within the state, there are some certain responsibilities that are for the state government, and there are certain responsibilities that are for the local government. So the Constitution has clearly outlined these responsibilities to the three tiers of government in Nigeria. That is the federal government, the state government, and the local government.
It's all right.
So the issue is even beyond the issue of financial autonomy. Now, what the Supreme Court is saying is that the local government, you need to also get the money that you are entitled to from the federation account, and you are also responsible for specific responsibilities. You are also supposed to take responsibility in providing certain services to the local governments. And the essence is that to bring government closer to the people. The government exists for the people. That is the essence of government. So government doesn't exist in vacuum. Government, in fact, Section 14 sub 2 clearly state that the primary purpose of government is the welfare and security and welfare of the people.
Yes.
So whatever the government is doing is for the people. So, and we all know, we all belong to local governments. We all belong to local communities.
Yes.
Even if we are at the state capitals or at the federal capital territory, we belong to one community or the other. And when you go to our communities, you discover a lot of infrastructural decay, a lot of infrastructural deficit, lack of roads, lack of social amenities. And most of these things are supposed to be done by the local governments. So in the past, we have had a situation where the state governors, because Section 162 of the Constitution provides for the joint account, the money that is supposed to go to the local government, when this money comes into the joint account, the state governments decide what goes to the local governments. And as such, in fact, when we returned back to democratic governance or civil rule in 1999, we were experiencing some level of development at the local governments. There were some local governments that within the period were constructing covers, some rural roads, even some secretariat were constructed by some local governments, even here in Benue State. It was around 2003 that the situation changed, that the state governments in Benue State also started controlling the funds of the local governments. And then we began to have this kind of issue that the local government were not able to do anything, any infrastructure at the local government, and the situation has continued, which is very unfortunate, because within this period there is a lot of infrastructural deficit at the local government level. So what the Attorney General of the Federation has done as the Chief Law Officer of the Federation, and maybe with the determination of the current administration to ensure that there's a provision of services to the rural communities and to all the citizens, they felt that this situation will need to stop. And that is why they approached the Supreme Court for the enforcement of the constitutional provisions that are already there.
I would want you to take a look at this clause by clause, because there are some clauses where the amendment was done in clauses.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we have arrived at this explanation you are giving to us here.
Yeah.
Could you kindly go back to the clauses that were touched to bring us to this point where we are?
Well, I may not be able to go clause by clause, because just as you said from the beginning, in as much as I was following the proceedings at the Supreme Court, I have not abreast myself with the entire case for me to really critique or analyze the judgment. In fact, when I was called yesterday to that I would be here, ordinarily I would have gone through it, but I was in an online meeting again that involved some of my partners from outside of the country, so the meeting dragged late. Yes. So I would not be able to do that.
So which of the subsections or clauses that talks about the financial autonomy, which seem to be well celebrated?
Well, like we have Section 7, which has made provisions for the local government.
Yes.
And then we have Section 162 of the Constitution that has provided for the issue of finances, for the federal government, state, and the local governments. Now, Section 162 of the Constitution, I think subsection 506, that had made provision for the allocation to the local governments. And in the past, the funds will come to the state government. The essence is that the revenue that is even generated within the state also is supposed to further distribute the revenue between the state and the local government. That was the essence of creating the joint account.
Yes.
So that
was a joint account constitutional in the first place?
Yes.
The JAC?
Yes. It was.
Why was it constitutional?
That is why I'm saying that the essence was that it makes provision for this joint account so that the money comes in. The money that is also generated within the state is also pulled together and then also distributed between the state and the local government.
So which part of the Constitution, instituted JAC?
That is Section 162, I think subsection 506.
Okay.
in the past, I think in the case of the Attorney General of Ogun State and the Attorney General of the Federation, which was decided I think sometime in 2003, when there was an attempt to send the funds directly from the Federation account to the local government. The Attorney General of Ogun State approached the Supreme Court, and the same Supreme Court that time held that based on the provisions of the Constitution that made provision for the joint account, the federal government cannot directly send funds to the local governments. Now, as I said, I have not looked at the current Constitution or if there's an amendment of that provision that the Supreme Court is now saying that the funds can be sent directly to the local government. But law is a kind of something for social engineering. Yeah. At times there is an amendment or there is an interpretation of the Constitution in order to give life to the words and meaning of the Constitution. So I think what the Supreme Court is now saying is that because of the problem that are inherent in the administration of the provision for JAC, because it's just like if we are from the same father, and they say that maybe because I'm the first son, I am giving money to pay my school fees and pay the rest of you. And anytime I receive the money, I pay my school fees and don't pay your own. Or I pay your school fees and I'm supposed to also give you money for maintenance and I only pay your school fees and I don't pay other things. And then they decide that, okay, since you are collecting this money as a first son that you are entitled to collect on behalf of your siblings, but because you are not administering it the way it is intended, then you are no longer going to collect the money as the first son, will now be giving your siblings directly. I think that is what the Supreme Court has done. And for me, it is something that is commendable. It is something that I feel that any responsible government and particularly governors should also comply with. Because, as I said from the beginning, if the government is for the people, and if as a governor you are interested in providing, making provision for the people, including the people at the local governments and at the local communities, and they are saying that, and you know that as a governor you cannot take responsibility of doing everything, including rural roads, doing everything in the rural areas, and then you have another tier of government, which is the local government, that is closer to the people, that should take this responsibility. You should encourage it. And then the same Constitution, Section 7, made clear provision for the state assemblies and the state government to have a kind of supervision and oversight over local governments. So what the state government needs to do simply is this supervision and oversight. In Benue here, we already have Bureau for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. We have a House of Assembly, which I believe they also have a committee on local government, that they can now supervise and oversight the activities of the local governments to ensure that the funds that accrue to them and are being released to them are channeled appropriately, so that we don't have a situation where the local governments also become laws, the local government. Because those are some of the issues. You know, we always say that you cannot throw away the bath water with the baby. You know, at some point, some local government chairmen, at the advent of return to civil rule in 1999, some of them were ruling from Abuja. You go to the local government and you will not see them. They will be in Abuja, and then they will just come around once in a while, you know. And those were some of the things that were happening. Some of them will even travel abroad, you know. And that was when the state governors started feeling that they were becoming too powerful, they were becoming reckless, and then they began to bring this issue to check the excesses. But I think the issue of controlling their finances in the manner that had happened all this while is not proper. So I think now, if the funds are going directly to them, to the local government, I think the state governors and the House of Assembly can still do supervision and oversight to ensure. And how are they to ensure that these funds are utilized judiciously? And how are they going to do it? Because I have worked on the issue of the activities of the local government in the past. There was a time I wanted to get the budget for some local governments. There were some that didn't have budgets. There was a local government I went, I believe it was when I wrote them to that they should give me the budget. They quickly prepared something and then even put the project that were federal government projects and some project that the House of Representatives was doing in the local government as his constituency project. They also put into that document. By the time I take it up on them, they started begging me not to release the document, to share the document to another person again.
Barrister Gbagi, I'd like you to pause a little bit in that line because we'll still get to that. Now, in the course of the conversation, you mentioned something very, instructive that I've noted. You've talked about financial autonomy, and you've talked about the fact that, prior, or let me say, we came back to civilian rule. The local governments were largely responsible for building culverts, hospitals, and even roads. So if you look at the Constitution, especially Schedule 4 of the 1999 Constitution, as well as 76, it has listed out the functions of the local government, which is exclusive, concurrent, and general. Now, looking at that schedule, don't you think that apart from the fact that we're celebrating financial autonomy, this judgment should have made a clear distinction or clear judgment in terms of the administrative functions of the local government? Because whether we like it or not, the local government derive some of their powers administratively from the state, especially in terms of their responsibilities and roles. So don't you think that the Constitution should have made that more definite? Because in as much as we are celebrating financial autonomy, it also begs the question of, are these local governments going to be fully empowered to run administratively? Because these local governments are also responsible for generating their own internally generated revenue, which of course the state tamper with. So don't you think that that line administratively should have been more distinctively spelled out?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, the Constitution is very explicit on the responsibility of both the federal government, state, and local governments. It is in the application or implementation of the provisions of the Constitution that has been the issue, and the basic problem is because the finances of the local governments has usually been hijacked and controlled by the state government. Now, the moment their funds begin to go to them, it goes without saying that you have this responsibility to apply these funds. You understand? So, just as we talked about Schedule 4 of the Constitution, which has outlined the responsibilities of the local government, and then in the same Constitution, I think the same thing also outlined their tax raising responsibilities. So, those ones, there's no problem with them. The issue is that despite these provisions, they were not getting their funds. So it was very easy to say, yes, we have responsibility to do ABC, but we cannot do them because we don't have funds. Now your funds are going to you. What justification do you have for not doing them? Then the issue of revenue, even the revenue that they are entitled to, the Court of Appeal in the past had already ruled. In fact, there was a case in Kano State and Cross River where the state government had contracted consultants, also engaged consultants to collect the revenue for the local government. And they went to court. In fact, it was even an individual in one case that went to court, not even the local government. And the court held that the state government had no responsibility to collect revenue for the local governments. Just like the federal government cannot come and collect the revenue that the Constitution has made provision that is collectible by the state. So what has been happening is clearly the constitutional anomaly that has been happening. Now, what the Attorney General of the Federation has done is to get the Supreme Court to pronounce on this issue to settle the matter judicially once and for all. And once that is done, I think to some extent, whether the governors like it or not, they will have no option than to allow the local governments to operate the way they are supposed to operate, just like the states are operating the way they are supposed to operate without much interference from the federal government. In fact, there are some instances, like during the last administration of Buhari, they passed the police act, the police act, which made provision for the police trust fund, which they were to deduct from the federation account into that fund to provide infrastructure for the police. The state government went to court and challenged that the money that they were putting into that trust funds were supposed to be shared to them, so the federal government had no power to just take a chunk of the money and put in that trust fund. And the Supreme Court agreed with them. You understand? What has happened in the past is that the local governments themselves, because one, we have situations where those who are even seemingly elected are not in a true sense of it elected, they are selected. And then when they are done for maybe for a tenure of 2 or 3 years, most instances they don't even finish this tenure. The state governors will dissolve them and appoint caretaker, and then everybody that is appointed a caretaker for 6 months, subject to review for another 6 months, the person is ready to do the bidding of the governor.
Okay, now, Barrister, speaking about the caretaker, because that was also, one of the points highlighted in the judgment.
Yeah.
Do you think that this spells the doom for the era of the caretaker to, be flushed out of the system? And then not only that, do you think that with this judgment, because there is no part of, if I stand to be corrected, there is no part of the constitution that specifically states that the local government have a stipulated term. Most times, usually 1 year, 2 years, as against 3 years. So, do you think that with this particular judgment, it now behooves that the constitution will now spell it out clearly that the local governments deserve to have a specific term more than a year, so that they can do what needs to be done?
Well, Section 7 provides that the state assembly can make law for the administration of the local governments. And in Benue State here, there is a local government law which was enacted by the state assembly, which has provided the tenure for local government as 2 years. In some states, it provide for 3 years, and I think some states maybe 4 years. Being that as it may, in each state there's a provision tenure, a provision for a tenure for local government. And their tenure also is subject for re-election for another tenure. But the issue is that in the past, most of the times, local governments, like what happened in Benue here, the last administration was appointing caretaker until when it was about to go, they now conducted election or selection and put in some people there. When this administration came, initially there was indication that they were going to allow them to complete their tenure, but there were huge outcry by political stakeholders that no, this is an opportunity for us also to enjoy having this and that, and then they were dissolved. And I think the matter is still in court, and then the caretaker was put in place. The BSEC was constituted to conduct election. I think ordinarily we would have conducting the election this last weekend or this coming weekend. They now shifted it again to November. And what was their reason? They were complaining because of lack of funds. And that is another issue. I agree with you that the National Assembly, in order to make this issue of local government work, there needs to be maybe a clear provision in the Constitution guaranteeing their tenure as well. And possibly, which will also because the federal government, let me just say that the federal government collects 52% of the revenue. You understand? So if they also want the local government to work, they can also take the responsibility of conducting elections at the local governments, so that the issue of their guaranteed tenure will also be there. Because the state governments at times they will complain that they don't have funds to give sake to organize election. Because I remember in 2016 when I had to also go to court to file a case to compel the then government to conduct local government election. That was one of the reasons they gave, that they had no funds to conduct local government elections. So these issues will need to be addressed holistically, minding the fact that the local governments are very important in the development plan of the nation.
Now, Barrister Baji, thank you very much for that insight there. Let's get to know who conducts local government elections moving forward.
At the moment, it is the state electoral commissions. That is the state electoral commissions that are supposed to conduct the election. In Benue here, so far, the local government elections that have been conducted are conducted by the Benue State Independent Electoral Commission, BSEC. Now, even currently, I understand that one of the reasons why the commission they gave as the reason why they cannot conduct the election at the time they gave was lack of logistics and facilities for them to do so, which means the lack of funds. Now that is why they shifted the elections to November also. The same thing the other states have been complaining, you know. But the problem is that instead of if you give the tenure of local governments for 4 years, just like the states governors and the president and the legislators, you now limit their tenure for 2 years. You want to be conducting election every two years. You understand? And then bearing in mind that you need funds.
Now, in your thinking, what do you think is the rationale for rationing the term of local government?
That is what I was saying, that it was a very deliberate attempt by the governors to control the local governments.
Now,
so that they give you a tenure of 2 years, and then after these 2 years, some of them are not even have the guarantee. In fact, after the 2 years, they will now say they don't have funds to even conduct another election. And then they will start appointing caretaker. But if it is 4 years, you know that if you conduct election, you know that after 4 years, you are conducting another election. So you start preparing for it. So even if it means setting aside funds every year, in 3 years you should set enough funds aside to conduct the election the 4th year. You understand? So it's a matter of strategic planning to ensure continuity. You understand? But as I said in the past, it was a deliberate attempt to scuttle the administration at the local government to perpetuate what the governors were doing.
When the Attorney General took this to the Supreme Court, part of the issues raised were the conduct of the local government election. We were thinking that at the end of the verdict, when verdict is given, INEC will take over full responsibility. If you check the Constitution, the Electoral Act gives INEC the power to conduct elections. And that if local government is now recognized as a third tier and one of the most important tiers of government in this country, why is the election still left in the hands of the governors? Because if it's at the state,
that is what I'm saying, that it is still a constitutional matter. The Constitution as it stands has not made provision for INEC to conduct local government elections. So the Electoral Act has only made provision for INEC to conduct elections in the FCT, they call it area councils, not local governments. So,
but the same Constitution now says the FCT is also regarded and recognized as a state.
Yes, but those are different issues of interpretation. When you are interpreting the Constitution as to, in fact, let me just simply say that when there is express provision of a Constitution or of a law, You don't impute any other interpretation. The Constitution has clearly not included local governments as part of constituencies for INEC to conduct elections in.
Yes.
The Constitution, by Section 7, has clearly given these responsibilities to the states. You understand? So now, with the problem that is on ground, at best the National Assembly can amend the Constitution.
But don't you think that is sort of ironical, because this judgment is supposed to, let me say, judiciously, or let me say, correctly interpret the principles of federalism. But if, like my colleague is raising here, if these local governments do not have a clearly spelled out, timeline for elections, apart from that, the clearly spelled out body that should be conducting this election, don't you think that this is at variance with what the Constitution is actually touting, which is the principles of federalism? Don't you think that this is a double speak?
No. You see, the provisions of the Constitution, as they are now, it's just like when you have laws. The laws are just in letters. It is the people that administers the law. If, for instance, you have a law that people should report here 7 o'clock and close 5 o'clock, that is the law. But some people may decide to come here 10 o'clock, and by 2 o'clock they'll say, I'm going to pick children from school, and then they will not come back. You understand? The Constitution as it stands on the issue of local government, if it was being adhered to, we wouldn't have any problem. The problem is in the administration or the implementation or application of the Constitution that has created all these problems. Do you understand? And then it is in trying to solve this problem that extra efforts are now being made in order to cure the mischief. Like as I said, in 1999, local governments were elected for 4-year term. Do you understand? What was the issue that made the state governments now to amend their laws to bring down their tenure to 3 years and to some to 2 years? Do you understand? Basically because they wanted to keep a hold on local governments and particularly to control their funds. So they wanted to do it in a way that the local governments will have no powers or voice again, so that they will control them. Now, if we go back to 4-year terms for the local governments, which the state assemblies have the power to amend the law to guarantee them 4 years, and then BSEC, even if it is BSEC that is conducting the elections. In fact, within this week, somebody was telling me that the BSEC chairman approached the INEC to give them beavers to help them conduct the local government elections, because according to him, he also wants the credibility, some level of credibility in the conduct of the local government elections in the state. But let's assume that that is done every two years. We know the resources that go into an election. Then you'll be conducting election every two years for local governments, spending a lot of money every 2 years. So for me, my recommendation would be that they should take the issue of local government tenure back to 4 years. The state assemblies should also make provision for that. Or the National Assembly can now amend the Constitution and specifically include in the Constitution. The issue of constitutional amendment is a game of its own. Because when it comes to constitutional amendment, the 2/3 majority of the states again need to support such proposed amendment.
That's right.
To the extent that in the last administration, when they were able to grant autonomy to even the legislators, to the state assemblies themselves.
Can you give us a direct interpretation to 2/3? Because we hear about this and the lay person is always confused.
Okay, for instance, we have 36 states of the federation.
Yes.
So if we are talking about 2/3, that means you are dividing this 36 by 3.
Okay. Now
so
very clear.
two. So let's look at 30 for instance.
Okay.
If it is 30, that means you need 20 states.
Yes.
And then we have the remaining 6. Then you need 4 out of the 6. That means you need 24 states to agree on such constitutional amendment.
Which is often very difficult.
Because the state governors will also direct their assemblies to vote against such amendment. To the extent that the proposed constitutional amendment to give financial autonomy to the state assemblies voted against it.
I was going to that actually. Because
so that is the issue.
I was actually going to ask you that if state assemblies could reject autonomy and they are now in support of local government autonomy, do you think this is going to be actually implemented to the latter?
Well, that is what I'm saying, that with the judgment of the Supreme Court now, which the state governors have nowhere to appeal to, they have no option than to comply.
Do you see them complying?
Yes, to some extent. And just as I said, the level of compliance may differ, but that brings us to the issue of the clause that where the local governments, at least where they are not democratically elected,
Yes, I was going to mention that.
they are not going to get the
Yes.
funds from the federation account.
And a lot of
So as a state governor, you stand a risk of not getting your local government not getting their share of the federation account, as long as it is not democratically elected. You understand? So, in as much as they wouldn't want this local government to enjoy the autonomy, I think they will try to ensure that they have, even if it's not democratically elected, at least democratically selected, so that at least we have some semblance of.
But don't you think having it democratically elected works in their favor? Because from the judgment, and at least from the little that I have seen, part of the judgment states that those states that don't have, democratically elected local government will not have their funds, sent to them, and that means, from what I saw, at least Benue too is also among Benue Code. There are a lot of states, about like 19 or 21. They are among those states. So don't you think that having a democratically elected local government system works in their favor? Don't you think so?
Yes, having it works in their favor, works in the favor of not only the governors, but for all of us. You understand? That is why I'm saying that judgment is for all well-meaning Nigerians. Because I am from my council ward is bad in Buruku local government. Once I entered Abua, it is the road to my village is a rural road. And then when I reached my village, in fact, there was a time I went to my village. I wanted to go to see my district head. I know what I went through. I went another long distance, turn around to enter there. But if the local governments have their funds to also do ABC, I can also reach out to the local government chairman in my district that, look, at least put a culvert here. There's a bridge here. There's a stream here. That if we have a bridge or a culvert, I can quickly trek. It was a trekkable distance.
But because of the bad road,
you understand? So the issue is, this issue is for the benefit of all of us. Right. And that is why I want to enjoy all the governors. You are not the governor. You are not going to be there forever. Yesterday we had Otom. Before we had Suswan. Before we have Akume. Today we have Fadalia. Tomorrow it will be another person. You are not going to be there in perpetuity.
Yeah.
So you must have the interest of the generality of the citizens at heart in your policy direction.
It's all right. I think Barrister.
And this issue, as far as we are concerned, we are trying to address the issue that affects the people in the rural areas, right, which all of us belongs to.
Yeah.
It's all right, Barrister Bagi, we are due for a break now. We'll return with you because you seem as though you have a lot to share with us. So we'll be right back to the studios of Benue Television. Let's go on a break very quickly. Welcome back. This is Daybreak Benue, our flagship program on Benue Television. And remember that we are available on the various social media platforms. We are on Star Times, and you can also get to access us on free to air. We are here to share with you insights coming from the autonomy granted to the local government, 774 local governments across Nigeria. Barrister Justin Bagi is here in the studios talking to us at various angles. Now, Barrister, we've spoken at length, but there is a question that is very important, and you have to answer this. All of us enjoy from cake at our birthdays. When you're offered cake, you enjoy it. But what makes it beautiful is the icing. Now, what is the financial autonomy of local governments in Nigeria without administrative autonomy? Because from all that we are saying here, it seems as though that administrative part is still given back to the states.
Well, the issue of administrative autonomy, simply the House of Assembly is supposed to make laws for the administration of the local governments. And in Benue State here, we also have a law of local governments administration, which is enacted by the State Assembly. So the administration of local governments is in line with that, the provision of the law. And the laws are, when the laws are being made, and I've looked at the current law for local government administration has no issues.
Yes.
If the local governments are allowed to operate in line with that law, there will be no issues. The issue is the issue of undue interference. The problem is the issue of control of their finances. So now, if the law, at least at the state level, at Benue State now, which made provision for 2-year tenure for local governments in the state, even if the local governments are elected, and you know that your tenure is secured for 2 years, and you are getting the funds that you need to run the local government, and then you know that if you do well, your people can re-elect you for another 2 years, I think we will not have any problem. The problem in the past is that the local government chairmen are elected, the local government council are elected for maybe 2 years.
Yes.
They run at times just 1 year, and then they are dissolved.
Yes.
And then because these people, they know that the governors have the right to dissolve them, they will be at the beck and call of the governors.
But you know that the tenure issue still rests with the State House of Assembly.
Yes, but
A legal framework will be given. If this is given, what if they now decide that their term should be just one year, as even against the 2 years that they were enjoying before?
Well,
because the pendulum is in their hands.
That is why I said earlier that there are two issues. Now, as the state governor, if you decide to give the tenure for local governments 1 year or even 6 months, you are the one that has the responsibility as it stands now to be conducting elections every 6 months or every 1 year. And if you are already complaining that you need a lot of funds to conduct local government election, and you decide that you'll be conducting election every 6 months or every 1 year, so be it. But what the judgment is saying, which is, I believe it's going to be enforceable, is that the moment you don't have local government, democratically elected local government council, you are not getting, the local government is not getting funds from the federation account.
Now, there is something I really would want you to picture very clearly, Barrister Bagi. You are the kingmaker, and it means therefore that you decide who becomes the king in a district. If the powers to conduct elections for local governments is in the hands of the 36 state governors, it means indirectly that they will decide who becomes a local government chairman in a particular local government. Don't you think so? And if they decide who becomes a local government chairman in a particular local government, they may also decide. Don't you think that they may also decide how much you collect from the local government and you give back to me. So where is the autonomy?
Well, that is where I've always had issue about the docility of we citizens of Nigeria. Do you know that even the state governors, they wield a lot of powers because we don't demand accountability? We don't demand accountability.
And even if we demand accountability,
so the issue is we allocate too much powers. We surrender too much powers to those whom we elect to represent us.
How about the constitution that has given immunity to the governors?
We don't demand accountability.
Barrister, how about the constitution? You're blaming the citizens. Let's talk about the constitution. Now, even in the current amendment, the immunity clause was part of what was taken to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court left that immunity out of it. That if they do it, I don't know whatever interpretation they had, but they left it out. The governors still have the immunity clause. And this is what has given the governors over the years verbose powers to operate at will. So don't you think it's just like turning an old wine into a new bottle, the whole process?
You see, if you look at the constitution of Nigeria and you compare it with the constitution of the US, because that is why I'll continue to tell us that our problem is not with the constitution, our problem with the application. The constitution of the US, I think with all the amendments, is not up to 30 pages or 40 pages. The constitution of Nigeria is, I think, over 300 pages or thereabout. Do you understand? The problem is with the application. In fact, some years back, I was discussing with one of my friends who was in the State Assembly that they went to US for legislative tour. And they went to one particular state where the deputy governor was coming to the State Assembly for legislative sitting. The man drove in his own car. He was alone. No convoy. He drove, he entered, he parked. They were in the parking lot. They didn't even know it was the deputy governor. He came, parked, and went. It was when they entered inside that they discovered that this was the deputy governor. So the issue is that there are a lot of things that we are doing wrong in this country, and that is why in fact, even when you just as you were saying, even some people, when they want to demand accountability from the government, it will be seen as if you are opposition. They will not look at the value or the essence of what you are doing.
So don't you think that the people, let me say, we as Nigerians don't really, yes, we might have a blame, but a greater part of the blame lies with the governors, because just like my colleague has pointed out, the immunity clause was expunged, or let me say it was not expunged, but it wasn't talked about. And even the House of Reps did even have deliberations about the immunity clause being removed.
See, it is not only in Nigeria, even recently, the Supreme Court of US said that Trump had immunity for prosecution for acts that he conducted as in his official capacity as the president, when he was the president. Globally, governors or presidents, they enjoyed immunity. They enjoyed immunity from prosecution.
And this is where the question is coming from.
From prosecution,
yeah.
When they are sitting, when they are there. But when they leave, there are some acts they can be prosecuted. There are some conduct you can also proceed for civil matters against them. The essence is that, for instance, in Benue State here, for instance, if you allow litigation against the governor, for whether in his official capacity or civil, at times he will have litigation left and right. You understand? So in order to make him concentrate in the 4 years that he's there, it is what is obtainable globally. But there are internal mechanisms to check the excesses of the governor. We have the assembly, which the assembly even have the powers to impeach the governor if he acts unconstitutional. But that doesn't seem to
happen in our own crimes, just as
exactly. And that is why I said that there needs to be re-evaluation of a lot of things that we do in this country. And for me, I also believe that we just celebrated 25 years of uninterrupted democratic rule in this country. US, I think they have celebrated over 200 years. So gradually, with this judgment of the Supreme Court on issue of local government, I have reason to believe that even if it comes with its own challenges, eventually we will get it right. So even if it will not be during our generation, eventually things will begin to take shape.
Are you saying
Barrister, let's be very clear on these issues.
Yeah.
You know, the reason you are here is to interpret the law to the people so that they understand. Besides, that's what you're trained to do.
Yeah.
To interpret the law. You don't have powers to make the law.
Yeah.
You are there to interpret. Let's give this the true interpretation. Governors, after the judgment yesterday, they said it's against the principles of true federalism. That's the statement coming from the governors. And then let's look at this very closely. If you give immunity to the governors, they are operating at a tier. That's the second tier of governance in the country. You give them immunity. The president has immunity. The local government chairmen do not have immunity. Now I want to ask you, in a judgment where the goat is facing the hyena, how sure are you the goat is going to get fair judgment? It means therefore that the local government chairmen, don't you think they are still in the hands of the governor squarely?
You see, let me emphasize this. The same system of local governments we operate in Nigeria is the same system of local governments that to some extent is operate in US, because we operate the same federal system of government. And I kept on saying that it is our own attitude. It is not with the law. Because when you are saying that the issue is not with the law, that is why I gave an example here earlier of a law, come to work 7 o'clock, close 5 o'clock. So the way some people will observe the law will be different from the others. And in Nigeria, if the majority decide to operate against the provisions of the law, that is what seems to be the status quo. Even the constitution, even the constitutional provisions, most at times we don't adhere to the letters of the constitution.
So don't you think that there is an imbalance in the system, in that those who are operating against the majority who are operating against the law do not seem to be punished, so they get away with this, and this is what keeps on giving this room for this lacuna and anomaly to continue?
Yes. Let me now take us to the realms of the fundamental human rights, which are enshrined in chapter 4 of the Constitution, which are guaranteed as fundamental human rights.
Yes.
When you go to the security agencies, they infringe on your rights. The same government that is supposed to protect your right infringes on your rights. As individuals, we don't reckon with the rights of others in our daily activities. You understand? There was a time in my house that somebody came and stood by my window around 5 a.m. with the loudspeaker and was preaching. And when I came out and protested, it was like it was the demon in me, that the preaching was disturbing the demon in me. He didn't recognize that I have the right to enjoy my rights at that time to sleep peacefully. At times I sleep early, but I wake up and then I walk till around at times 3-4 a.m. and then I want to sleep, and then you come and you are disturbing my peace, and you think that I should not complain because if I complain, you say that it's the devil in me.
And you couldn't take that complaint to the police. You couldn't take it to
no,
the police.
I told you. In fact, by the time it was in the night, trying to know his location to report to the police to go and arrest him, or trying to file, because I can as well file a direct case against him, trying to know his details to go all this. I told him that since he wants us to do it, we can go one-on-one. And I was ready to go with him one-on-one.
But that would have been against the law.
And that is what I'm saying. Do you understand?
So how can the chief law
Going against
they say that the right of one stop where the right of another. And I also has the right of self-defense. So I was defending myself to enjoy my right.
Okay then.
You understand?
Yes.
So the point is that until all of us consciously as a people, we begin to be mindful that we are regulated by law. And that's why we have the usual rule of law. By the time we are mindful that what I'm doing, is it in line with the law? Because in every society...
But do we have rule of law in the country? In Nigeria?
That is the same thing we are saying.
It's okay.
That ordinarily we are supposed to be governed by the law. And that is why in the society we talk about the rule of law. It is not the rule of might. It is not the rule of the most powerful. It is the rule of law. What the law provides is what binds all of us. So if the law provides that what should be done, then everybody is supposed to comply with the provisions of the law. But when we don't comply with the provisions of the law, and majority, in fact, the simple things like traffic light. Even yesterday in the morning, I almost hit an Okada that was coming against the traffic because the light gave me right of way, and still he wanted to pass. And because I was also concentrating because the light had given me the right of way. Yes, in fact, by the time he realized that I was also coming, he dodged. Before, in fact, it was when he dodged and reared off the road that I noticed him. Yes. Because I felt ordinarily, if he was observing the light, he would have stopped because his side was red and I was the one that had right of way. And the guy was still insulting me.
It's all right, Barrister. Let's come back to the issue of local government autonomy. I've identified a lacuna in the whole of what we're talking about, and I would want us to fix it because the people are eagerly waiting to know.
And that's what I'm saying. That the lacuna or whatever problem that we have is the governors that are the problem.
Why did
it's the governors? Let me finish. Because you are talking about what is. If the governors, all of them realized that there is need for local government to operate in line with the provisions of the law, and they will allow them to operate within the confines of what the Constitution has provided, we will not have this problem we are having.
And that's why I'm tempted to ask you this question. I don't want it to elude my mind.
Yes, I understand you. Let me, if you allow me to elaborate, maybe we'll get there.
Please go ahead.
Now, it is as a result of the recalcitrant attitudes of the governors that the federal government or the Attorney General went to court in the first instance. Now, it is like they have tried the carrot approach,
stick approach,
and it has not worked, and now they are trying to use the stick approach. Now, the governors, this is what the law says. And since you have been refusing to allow the local government to operate as the law allows, now if you don't allow them to operate this way, at the federal level, because you have this level of control, we also exercise it. Do you understand? So now there is that is why I was saying earlier that now there is also room for negotiation by the state governors with the federal government. And because the federal government currently has constituted is interested in the local government enjoying this autonomy, they may now say, okay, we are going to give you time within which you should put in place democratically elected local government chairman.
Yes.
But if you don't do it, at least the funds that we have to give to the local governments, we are not going to give them if they are not democratically elected.
So do you see this putting an end to the rascality by governors? Because whether we like it or not, just like my colleague said, governors have assumed a godly disposition in this country because they decide what goes on in their states, and invariably with what goes on with the federal government as well. So does you see this happening in the sense that you think that this will put, if it's not going to put an end totally, but this is going to tame their rascality to some certain level, so that federalism, which they claim to practice, can actually survive and thrive?
It will go to some extent, because in the past, without this judgment, and without this issue, even the local government chairmen were at the mercy of the state governors. Now, if I'm elected, even if it is for 1 year, and I know that for 1 year that I'm there, I enjoy some level of autonomy.
Yes.
You understand that I'm no longer at the beck and call of the governor, and this is what I want to do for my people, and I'm getting the funds, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing for the people, and then maybe the governor or the assembly wake up one day and say that because you are not being loyal to us, we will remove you or we will suspend you. That would be a problem. And that is why I'm saying that when there is a problem, you don't solve it overnight. There's a gradual process. And that is why I'm saying that this judgment of the Supreme Court is a step towards eventually resolving these problems. So if we expect that the solution should come overnight, and then the state governor should hands off the local government and everything should be normal, it will not, because they know what they are benefiting from this control. It is just like even in the family of husband and wife. You understand? Yeah. If you are the husband that is, has total control over your wife, and you dictate, don't go out, don't do this, and to some extent, he comes to realize that, am I a slave here? I'm not a slave. I'm your wife. I'm your partner. I should enjoy some right. I should begin to exercise it. You understand? If you are a responsible man, and you also know that what you have been doing is wrong, then you also need to come to terms that you need to allow what you live as a human being.
That's all right.
Now, it is for the state governors to also realize, and that is why I'm happy that if they are going to meet with Mr. President will also definitely tell them in very clear terms.
Yeah, because Charles Olujode said they are going to do that.
Yes. Now look, if we are for the people, if you are the governor because the people elected you, we want local government to enjoy autonomy because they are responsible for providing these basic services to the rural areas.
That's right.
For instance, in the state here, it is a matter of, we have the Bureau of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs that is also supposed to be kind of act as oversight over local government. It's a matter of every local government submit your budget, maybe 2025 budget, and then this is how much you are going to get from the federation account. At least they determine, they know those are the projects. Even at the level of the states, even if there are some certain projects that are within the local government, the governor can direct, or the bureau can direct that. Make sure you are able to do so.
What now becomes the role of the local council legislative arm of government? Because they have councillors.
No, they are the one that are also going to approve the budget.
Good.
But what I'm saying is that the bureau and the assembly, they are also acting as oversight.
Yes.
You understand? Because instead of this control where you keep their money,
yes,
and determine what they do, now you are giving this money, but you also have a level of input in what they do with the money.
Yes. Part of the
so gradually, at least, it's just like I have your money, you understand, and I'm giving you peanuts. When you need it, you come and I give you. Whereas I say, okay, you have this 1 million, take it, but make sure that you do this cover, or bring your proposal. Do you understand? You see with your council, legislator at the council, you are but in with oversight or supervision from the bureau.
Yes.
You understand? Instead of the bureau deciding what you should do, you are deciding what you do, and then when you bring the proposal and they make input, eventually in the course of implementation, they also go around to supervise, to make sure that what you provided in the budget, you have actually done it.
It's okay.
You understand?
Now.
So by the time we are doing that, eventually there will be some level of improvement from the status quo.
Yes. Now, based on your experience as a legal practitioner over the years, Barrister Bagi, I would like a candid answer for this question. What do you think has made the Supreme Court to completely leave the aspect of administrative autonomy? Because these were the issues that were taken to them. Why did they leave that out completely?
Because the Constitution has already made provision.
Welcome back to the program. This is Daybreak Benue on Benue Television. We are still with you. We have a couple of minutes to share with you before we finally say goodbye. We have Barrister Bagi Justin, who is a former chairman, NBA Makurdi chapter. He has been talking to us variously on the issue of autonomy granted to the 74 local governments, I beg your pardon. And so, before the break, he was trying to establish a point on the core issues of autonomy. You know, making particular reference to sections 7 to 8 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Barrister, please, let's build up from where you had started.
Yeah. So the point I was actually making is that Section 7 of the Constitution has clearly made provision for the establishment, for the existence of democratically elected local governments, and has also empowered the state assemblies to make laws for the establishment functions of the local governments. So the Supreme Court, in interpreting the Constitution, is also mindful that where there are express provisions, like the issue of the state assemblies being responsible for a law for the existence of the local government, is not an issue, because the Constitution has expressly made provision for it. So if there is any issues at all, it is an issue of amendment, constitutional amendment, which would be the National Assembly that will embark on the process to now amend that provision to take that out of the jurisdiction of the state assemblies. But without that amendment, the Supreme Court, despite that they are supreme, they cannot just look at the clear and unambiguous provisions of the Constitution and interpret it otherwise. And I believe that is the reason why they did not, in very clear terms, make pronouncements on the issue of local government administration, because that is clearly provided in the Constitution already. So if there are issues with the administration, which is an issue of application of the Constitution, and there is need to cure the mischief, it will be by legislative activity, which will be the constitutional amendment.
Yes. Now the question, the question, because our time is fast running out. Now, could you please tell us, why is it that for 23 years, because from what you have said, I've drawn my analysis from what you said in the opening, you said until 2023, the autonomy of local government
2003.
was lost. Yeah, 2003, so sorry. The autonomy of local government was lost. That's marking up to 23 years that the local government have suffered this. Now, was it that we have the NBA, in fact, we have the judiciary, we have the legislative arm, we have the executive arm, and then we have other concerned citizens of this country. Does it mean every citizen was asleep regarding this issue, or no one was aware that autonomy was being denied to the local government for 23 years?
That is why, whether I was talking about our docility, that we are so docile in this country, that issues that ordinarily we would take up will not, because of maybe our political relationship with the government or whatever. But I would not say that completely there has not been any efforts. In some within this period, there were cases that even went up to Supreme Court, that the Supreme Court had made pronouncement on this issue. And I said it was even based on one of such judgments that the Supreme Court had pronounced, that in 2016, I also went to court here in Benue State against BSEC and the state government to compel them to conduct the election, which they did in 2016. So within this period, there were some pockets of efforts here and there. But the point is that they were not continuous, constructive and continuous. You understand? And this is because we have a situation where some people in this country or in our society seem to be the one determining a lot of issues. Like in Benue here, we have what we call the stakeholders. I was at a...
Is it only in Benue State?
I'm talking about where, because I like talking on the side that I know authoritatively what I'm saying.
Yes.
During Susam's administration, if we recall when the primary schools were on strike in Benue here for a long period of time, we went for a stakeholders meeting to discuss the issue on how to resolve the issue. And Susam told us, openly as the governor, that there are some people, we're talking about the issue of local government, that there are some people that are in Makodi here with their wives that are on the payroll of local governments. And they are here with them in Makodi. And in his characteristic manner, he was saying that they cook both the morning food and the night food for them every day. They don't go to work. But there's nothing that he can do about it because they are stakeholders.
Yes.
This is what he said. Openly, the event took place at Taka Foundation. Do you understand? So the point is that when I'm giving that instance because when we fail to do the right thing because of certain interests, like the issue of local governments, even at the advance of this administration, there are some people at the local government that are stakeholders at the local government that were responsible for collecting revenue. I know that there were efforts to make sure that such people are no longer the ones responsible for collecting revenue at the local government. And these people, they collect this local government revenue and they don't even remit even a percentage to local government. They give them the responsibility. They now get some boys and they assign them, they collect this revenue, they bring to them, they settle the boys. They don't even remit a percentage to the local government. So those are some of the people that are indigenous of this local government. These are the people that are elites. If we were talking about this category of people, you know that those are elites. Those are the people that would need to stand up and say that we need local government autonomy to be able to deliver their responsibility, their mandate to the people. But because they are the ones that are benefiting, whatever happens, they don't care.
Okay, Barrister Maggie, the last question for me. So, with this landmark ruling now, what do you think, or how do you see the future looks for the local government chairman in terms of, because you did give an analogy 2003 how local governments were very vibrant. So do you think that the local governments now with this financial autonomy they have gotten, they are not going to somehow become like the governors we are complaining about? They are not going to grow horns and become something else in terms of how their excesses would be checked?
Yes, as I said, the local governments, there are already systems in place to check their excesses. So I don't see them becoming warlords in their respective
because
local
governments.
Because
that was the fear that my colleague did raise about the governors, which is what led to them clipping the wings
yes.
of the local government chairman.
So there are already systems in place to check their excesses. But for me, I think by and large, it is the commitment by all stakeholders, including the governors, other political elites, to ensure that this local government enjoy their autonomy and they operate. The citizens, well? Yes, they operate within the confines of the law.
Yes,
that is the most important. That is why I was talking about the rule of law.
Yes.
If the local government chairmen are also operating within the provisions of the law, there will be no problem.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes.
As a local government, you know that you are getting this. You provide your budget, and the money is coming, and you are applying it to do ABC. You know, we have a situation where primary health care centers, the state government was taking responsibility of everything. You know, it is not just like when we complain about the federal government taking too much responsibilities, you come to the state. The state is now taking the responsibilities that are for the local government. Yes. Things are not running smoothly. You understand? You have your own responsibility, which are also very large. And then you are going to take the responsibility of the local governments again. So for me, I think by the time the governors also realize that this is for the good of all of us, because even if you are a governor, at most you will be there for 8 years. You will no longer be there. Yes. But if you have a local government system, that is able to provide basic amenities to the rural communities where people will also benefit. Like for instance, I believe that if now Oton goes to Guma local government and there is borehole, even if I believe that there is borehole in his own house in Guma,
yes,
in Bajimba, but if there are other boreholes constructed by the local government, people will not be trooping to his house to fetch water. Well, so let's allow the local government to enjoy their autonomy and ensure that they also perform their functions within the confines of the law, so that the general people that are supposed to be the beneficiaries will derive this benefit.
Thank you very much, Barrister Justin Bagi, former NBA chairman, Makwedi chapter. I'd like to welcome Makwedi branch. I'd like to welcome you once again and thank you very much for being a part of this robust discussion. And we also hope that the governors, the 36 state governors, will take the verdict of the Supreme Court in good faith, because it's about democracy, it's not about individuals. I want to thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
And so we'll take a break at this point, and we'll return in a few minutes. We'll take the papers and we'll call it a wrap thereafter. So please stay with us. Welcome back to the show. This is Daybreak Benue on Benue Television, and now it's a segment where we take a look at the papers, and thereafter we'll be saying goodbye. I'd like to start with the Nation newspaper here. The banner headline says governors lose financial control over local government. And that's the topic of our discussion this morning. And the rider says Supreme Court orders direct payment of council's allocation, no funding for councils without elected officials, and then access to federation account cash. That's 479 out of 774 councils lose access to federation account cash. And so we also have ex-minister on 33.8 billion fraud. Trial collapses outside country. You can find that on page 5 of the paper. And troops foil terrorist plans to destroy national assets in Kaduna State. That's all coming from the Nation newspaper.
Now from the Vanguard, above the newspaper mass, we have Dangote Refinery. Federal government producers agreed to supply crude, enhance domestic refining. This is on page 19. And the lead story here, executive order. Drug makers seek clear timeline. Stable naira for 70% production. One of the riders, maintained non-implementation, hampering companies from placing order on importation of raw materials. Others say unless naira value was fixed, local drug manufacturing a mirage. This is on page 8 of the Vanguard.
And now let's take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper here. The banner headline with a kicker says Supreme Court verdict. Local councils must now account for own actions, says Tinubu. And then Ryder says also amend constitution to get INEC conduct local government polls. Exactly what we were talking about here this morning. And the ex-governors. All institutions must be respected, says Professor Yadudu. And governors would review decision, says Soludo. We're trying to portray the body language of the various governors across the 36 states. Now, ex-power minister Maman remanded in correctional center. You can find that on page 12 of the paper. And the picture story here is showing Zenith Bank Capital, and then the various actors of the bank are here in the snapshot. And so that's all coming from the Daily Trust's paper. Yeah, from the Guardian, I beg your pardon. The picture story is all about autonomy, why local governments have not escaped powerful collapse of governors. This is on page 6. And then one of the lead stories, Nigerian confidence in anti-graft war dwindling. This is on page 7. Another interesting one which everyone will be definitely interested in, minimum wage. Tinubu
Labour leaders parley inconclusive to continue next week. This is on page 6. Graft charges. Ganduje wife orders to face trial in October. This is on page 28. And the last one, which is of course a point of concern to everyone. Filthy abattoirs, unhygienic meat processing spike their health concerns. This is a big story on pages 4 and 5 of the Guardian, and that's it from the Guardian over here.
And that's brought us to the end of this production. We'd like to appreciate all of you for your viewership, those at the back room, and everyone who has contributed immensely towards the success of this program. Remember, Monday provides us with another opportunity for us to reach out to you on Daybreak Benue. My name is Japhet Wahom.
Thank you for staying with us on the show. I wish you a pleasant weekend, and do stay tuned for the rest of the programs here on Benue Television. My name is Maureen Young.